Alrighty. Well, it is Tuesday, January the 28th, in the year of our Lord 2025. I've got a Rocky cat sleeping on me here. Not sure what you can see. But anyway, yeah. Mm. Oh boy. Well, I guess I should explain some things anyway, because it's hard for people who haven't lived this way to understand it, and I guess I can understand that. I probably wouldn't have understood it until I ended up living this way. Um, I should start out by saying that I do have some health problems that limit my stamina. I run out of gas pretty easily. I get winded easily. You've probably noticed that in my videos. When I'm walking and talking, I have trouble. I breathing and so on. And anyway, the bottom line is this. Some people have talked about that, and I've had this happen many times. People talk about, well, I need to clean this camper up and so on. The camper's filthy and like that. Well, the camper isn't all that clean. They're right about that. It's dirty, and the truth of the matter is, I'm not all that clean compared to how I used to be. When I had my house, I used to shower every day. I used to change my clothes every day. I used to shave every day. You'd never see a scruff like this on me when I had my house. That would never happen. Um, I used to scrub the floors at least once a week. Of course, I'd scrub more often if something happened. I mean, if there was a spill or something, I'd scrub that area at least. But I scrubbed all the floors once a week anyway. Um, and I kept the place meticulously clean. I did. And I kept myself meticulously clean too. When I first started living this way, I tried to maintain that, but I found it impossible because there's so much more work involved in everything I do. Cooking a meal is a lot harder now. Um, Cleaning anything is a lot harder. I have to boil water. I don't have hot water on tap. I have to boil it. I don't have a bathtub or shower anymore. I don't have a flush toilet. Um, I don't have electricity, really, other than that generator out there that I just got. The generator I had when I first lost my house that I bought was pretty useless, really. It didn't really do much of anything. I don't know if I got a dud or if that's just the way those generators are, but it was useless anyway. Um, like I said, I don't have running water back here. I have to bring my water back in 1 gallon jugs. Um, you know, and so, and I have to boil water to clean. I have to boil water for everything, really. If I need hot water, I got to boil it on flame. Um, Everything is more work. Nothing is easy. Everything is more work. This camper, of course, it was never designed to be lived in full time. It was only designed to be lived in for 2 weeks or a month out of every year. And so my entire life is pretty much in this camper, you know, which it was never meant to be that way. And so, yeah, I mean, even to do anything in here, I have to move stuff. If I want to use some counter space, I have to hunt around for places to put stuff that's already occupying that space, and then I'll have that space to work on. Um, when I had my house, that was never an issue. I always had plenty of space to work with whatever I was doing. Um, so yeah, it's not. I did try to maintain it, and I was just unable to do it. There weren't enough hours in the day, and I didn't have enough energy. And on top of that, in the summertime when I'm working, I'm doing a lot of hard physical labor. And to come back here then and be scrubbing and all the rest of it, boiling water first before I can scrub and all that, I just don't have the strength. And so, of course, things tend to go downhill. Then in the wintertime, I pretty much have to empty the camper out to clean it. In the wintertime, you can't do that, you know, because what am I going to do? Take everything I own and dump it into the snow out there? So, like I say, it just isn't as easy as it might, as some might perceive it to be. It's very difficult, and I keep myself and the camper clean, considering all things considered. I do, but no, I'm not as clean as I used to be. I'm not as clean and I'm not as clean physically. My body isn't as clean as it used to be, and my living space isn't as clean as it used to be. That is true. Um, and the thing is, even now with food, there was a time if a bug got into my food, the food would get thrown away, and I'd make a new meal. Now I just pick the bug out and eat the food, because there's so much involved in cooking a meal, and and even going and getting the food and cooking it and everything. If a bug lands in my food now, I just pick the bug out and keep eating, because I don't want to go through that process again. A lot of the time, I don't have the strength to go through that process again. And this is the thing this is the thing of living this way anyway. You may have noticed now I drink out of a jar with a lid. I'll admit I'm kind of slow on the uptake. When I was a boy back in the 1970s, I was tested twice, and it came back that one test said I was borderline mentally retarded, and the other test said I was mildly mentally retarded. So officially, well, now they say developmentally disabled. In those days, they'd say mentally retarded, and that was the label that was hung on me back then, was mentally retarded. But the bottom line is, according to the medical profession, I'm a simpleton. That's what it boils down. Now, whether I am or not, I'll leave it up to each individual to decide for themselves. But that's what the medical profession says about me, is that I'm so far below even average intelligence that I'm regarded as a mental defective, basically, or whatever. Now, like I say, I'm not sure if I believe that or not. Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. I suppose if it is true, I'd be the last one to know. I might be deluding myself thinking it isn't true. But the bottom line is this. What I have found is that sometimes I am a little slow on the uptake, and it took me 3 years of living this way to figure out that I should drink from a container with a lid on it, in order that I don't keep getting bugs in my soda or my juice or whatever, because when you're living like this and you're eating outside in the summertime and stuff, and you're cooking outside, I'd be cooking something and I'd have a glass of soda or a glass of juice beside me there where I was working, and I'd turn and look, I'd go to take a drink, and there'd be a bug doing the backstroke in my juice or whatever. And it got to the point where I just pick the bug out and drink it, because I was going through so much juice. I mean, you could dump it out, pour myself a new glass, and a minute and a half later there'd be a bug in it. So like I say, it took me 3 years to figure out that I could drink out of a jar with a lid on it. So I'm still trying to figure all this out. I mean, maybe they are right about me. I think the average person would have figured that out in a week, or maybe even a day or two. In my case, it took me 3 years. So maybe they're right about me. Maybe I am borderline retarded or mildly retarded or whatever. I don't know. But the testing says I am. If you go back to the 1970s, the test they ran on me said that that's what I am. Anyway, I am still trying to figure it out. It's a learning curve, and I think even if I were tested to be in the high intelligence range, I think even if I were tested and it came out that I was a genius, living this life, there'd still be a lot to learn. You know, I think if Albert Einstein found himself living this way, he would have a lot to learn. You know, he'd probably learn quicker than I'm learning, but he'd probably screw up too at first, at least. You know, he'd just be quicker to solve the problems than I have been. That's all. Anyway, that's the bottom line. That's where we're at. It is what it is. I'm doing my best in adverse conditions. And, you know, one commentator says, well, you leave food out like that, you deserve what you get, and all this. Well, for one thing, I'm not complaining. I get this a lot where people think I'm complaining. I'm not complaining. I'm documenting the situation. This is what I'm experiencing. This is what I'm going through now. And actually, one of the reasons I made this channel, it wasn't really, when I made the channel, my intention wasn't that I'd get a lot of followers or that it would be a big thing. I'm actually surprised by the number of people who have subscribed and the number of people who watch the videos and stuff. I never expected that. It was partially to document the situation because I think future generations will find it interesting, assuming that Jesus doesn't come back in the meantime, you know, and there are future generations here living in this world to find it interesting. That's part of it. Because look, I mean, films that were made in the 1930s showing how people were living then really weren't interesting to the people who were living then, because to them that was just their life. They didn't find that you show a film of a Hooverville or something, you know, a hobo village or whatever. The people back then didn't find that interesting because that was life. That was their life. That's how they lived every day. And so chances are those films really weren't watched by very many people back then. Nowadays, we watch that and we find it fascinating. And see, that's how I was looking at these videos I make. I wasn't expecting to live to see anybody take an interest in them, really. But I figured you put it on the internet and it's there forever somewhere. And so maybe somebody will stumble across these in 50 or 70 or 100 years, and they'll find it fascinating. Maybe it'll be something that people will want to see then, and they'll say, you know, there was this guy back in the 2020s that was living this life, and, you know, he documented his daily struggles. He documented his failures. He documented his successes. He showed how he struggled to figure things out, and he showed what solutions he came up with and how he improved on things and you know, all the rest of it. And he talked about, you know, his frustrations and his fears for the future, which we can relate to, even though we're not him and we're not living in that time and we're not living that situation. We have our own fears about the future now and our own, you know, our own misgivings and regrets about the past and so on, just like that guy does, you know, on there. Like, we can relate to that in some way. And maybe it'll show people that, you know, we're not really that different. Humanity, you know, the clothes change and the way the vehicles look. The cars don't look the same now as they did then and so on. But, you know, like, look, there'll be people 100 years from now, if people see these videos, that truck of mine is going to look like a Model T Ford looks to us now. That 97 Ram truck I have, Dodge Ram truck, that's going to look like, when we see a Model T Ford now, how that looks, how quaint that looks to us, that's how that truck is going to look to people in 100 years. And see, so if you're watching this 100 years from now, I know that you're going to look at my old truck and you're going to laugh and you're going to say, boy, what a quaint old truck, you know, isn't that a neat old truck, you know, or whatever. I know you're going to say that. But in these times, that's not a neat old truck. That's just an old used truck, you know. Just like in the 1930s, a Model T Ford was just an old used car, you know. But the bottom line is this. That's one of the reasons I make these videos. The other reason is because as I age, I'm 56 now and I'm not getting any younger. The clock isn't going backwards, not getting any younger. And sometimes I tell stories about my family. I told the story about just recently there. I made a video about how my dad came to me just a couple of months before he died and had a conversation with me and stuff. Now, see, what I'm finding is as I get older, I'll start telling a story and I'll realize that of 8 or 10 people that were in the room when something happened, I'm the only one left. Everybody else is gone, and or maybe I'm one of 2 people that are left, and the other person now is close to 90 years old, so they're not going to be around too much longer, And so what happens is I want to document these things. Part of it was to document some family history for family members that weren't alive when these things happened. Family members who don't remember the 1970s and the 1980s because they weren't here. They were born in the 1990s or they were born in the 2000s or whatever. To somebody who was born in 1998, like I have a niece, Emily, who was born in 1998. Well, to her, 1990, to her, 1998, or to her, the 1970s and 80s are like the 1930s and 40s to me, And so, because I was born in 1968. So, it's like the 1940s and 50s to me. And so my thing is I want to document different things. I want to document things that happened in my own family for family members in the future. And there are family members of mine who aren't even born yet, who won't be born until long after I'm dead, who may see these videos and it may shed some light on some things for them. They may have an understanding of the I don't know if you could say the politics or the family dynamics or whatever, but why things are the way they are in my family. They might understand it better because this old fool here, this diagnosed mentally retarded fool, sat here or laid here or whatever and told some story about something that happened in 1975. That may be the key that just kind of binds it all together for them. Where they say, okay, that's the reason, Now I understand why Uncle Fred was the way he was, or whatever, Now I understand this or I understand that. And so that's the reason I do these things anyway. And that was my intention when I started the channel. I never intended for it to get as big as it's gotten. I've got nearly 3,000 subscribers. When it hit 300, I was amazed. Really, when it hit 30, I was amazed. I didn't expect that. So, because to me, this isn't really all that interesting. And I think that's how it is with our lives. It really isn't. When I was a kid, and I don't know, I guess I was different in many ways, but I used to ask my grandparents questions. Like I asked my grandmother one time how her and my grandpa met. And she was kind of astonished, like, you want to know about that? Well, yeah, I do. Well, she said, it's not very interesting, and I said, well, tell me, I want to know. And so she, okay, if you want to know, I'll tell you. And she told me the story. Now, I found it interesting, and I still find it interesting. But see, to her, because that was her life, she didn't find it interesting. To her, it was just, oh, well, this is what happened, and, But she didn't find it interesting. And I'll tell you how they actually met was in the 1930s when they had both left school. My grandmother, she graduated from grade 8, and she had to write her entrance exams. And it turned out she was smart enough she could have went to university, but the opportunity wasn't there. So she lived in a little village, well, not even in the village. She lived outside a little village called Stanleyville, which is located between the town of Perth and the town of Westport. Anyway, when she finished grade 8, she had to get work. And so she was sent into town to be the house girl for a family by the last name of Molly. And actually, there was a barber in Perth, really nice fella. His name is Doug Molly. He's retired now. I don't even know if he's still alive. He might have passed away by now. He'd be quite old. He'd be quite old if he is still alive. He'd be hovering around 100 years old if he's still alive. But at that time, Doug Molly was a baby. He was a newborn baby. And my grandmother was the house girl. Her job was to look after baby Doug and to do the cooking and the cleaning and stuff like that. And every day she had to walk into the downtown area of Perth and buy the meat for the evening meal because they didn't have real good refrigeration back then. So you didn't want to be keeping meat around for very long. You know, you tended to eat your meat the day you bought it. Anyway, so every afternoon she'd have to go downtown and buy things for the evening meal. And anyway, the Mollys lived on Church Street in Perth. And my grandpa lived at 18 Church Street, which was on the corner of Church and Arthur Street in Perth, kitty corner to the back part of the Catholic Church of St. John the Baptist Roman Catholic Church. That's where my grandpa lived, in the house on the corner there. And he should have been in school. He should have been in grade 8, actually. But he played hooky a lot, him and his friends did. So him and his friends would be hanging out on the porch at his house when they should have been in school. And my grandmother would walk past there every day. My grandmother's name was Mary Kerr. She was a Kerr. Her maiden name was Kerr. She'd walk past there every day. And I guess my grandpa thought she was pretty. He was attracted to her. And so he's like, ooh, who's the new girl in town? You know, I got to get to talk to her. And he saw her go by every day, and he and his friends would be on the porch. And he'd try to talk to her, and she'd just kind of look the other way and keep walking. Because before she left Stanleyville, she was told, okay, you're going into town. And to them, you know, Perth was like a city to the people in Stanleyville. And so she was told, you're going into town. You know, you don't know people. And so on like that. Just don't trust anybody. Keep your head down, do your work. Don't trust anybody. Trust no one. Just keep your head down and do your work. That's what she was told by her family when she left. And so she was taking that advice. Plus she was thinking, who's this waste of space on the porch all afternoon? Like, he's not in school and he's not working, obviously. What the hell is he doing? Like, he's kind of a waste of space, really, this guy, you know, like, you know, it doesn't seem like somebody I should trust, even if I hadn't been told not to trust anybody. And so she didn't want anything to do with him. And he gradually wore her down, and eventually she started to respond to him. She at least would nod and say hello or whatever. And over time, he wore her down, and she got that she'd stop and chat with him a bit and stuff. And she discovered she genuinely liked him. Didn't think she would, but she did. And my grandpa then, he got hauled into court for truancy. And the judge told him, either you come back here next week with proof that you have a job, or I'm sending you to the reformatory at Alfred. Well, Alfred, Ontario is another little town up north of here. And there was a reformatory up there, and it's a notorious place. It's closed up now. But it was a place where boys were raped and beaten and everything else. It was just awful. Anyway, he didn't want to end up there. So his mother, Agnes, She worked in the shoe factory, and she got him a job in the shoe factory to keep him out of jail. That's what happened anyway there. My grandmother told me all this. Now, I find all that fascinating. But of course, to her, it was boring because it was her life. It was nothing to her. It was just, well, yeah, that's what happened. She was actually amazed that I wanted to know. And see, over the years, I've been able to fill in some blanks for various family members because I was always asking questions, and my grandparents would tell me anything I wanted to know. They were always kind of amazed that I wanted to know because to them it was boring. But see, that's the reason I do what I do. At least that's how it started. That's why I started doing this channel, is because of that. Anyway, the bottom line is I'm doing my best. It's not always good enough, I know that. But I am doing my best. I'm trying to survive, and I have a lot of things going against me, but I'm trying to survive as best I can. Yeah, there's just conditions aren't real great, I know that. And but again, one of the things that I want to come out of this really is I want to document the situation, and I want to do it as honestly as I can. And because I think that at some point in the future, this will be more interesting than it is now. It turns out it's already more interesting than I thought it would be. But it's going to be even more interesting in the future, long after I'm gone from this world. And like I say, maybe some family members of mine who I'll never know, family members who aren't even around and won't even be breathing the air and being under the sun at the same time as me, because I'll be long gone. Maybe they'll see this, and if they do, I'm talking to them too. I'm saying, like, look, this is the situation. These are the things in my family, like the story I just told you. That's how my grandparents met, my dad's parents, and those are your relations. You'll never know them because they're long gone now. Grandma Fournier passed away from cancer in 1988. My dad, Tom, passed away just 2 weeks later. And my grandpa Fournier passed away on Valentine's Day, actually, 1996. And he died of a heart attack. He was found in the morning in his bed dead. He had passed from a heart attack. Anyway, bottom line is, both of those people, my grandpa's name was Arthur Shirley. Fournier. Everybody called him Shirley, though, but his first name was actually Arthur. His middle name was Shirley. And how he got to be called Arthur, how he got to be called Shirley, is another kind of an interesting story. Every family, it seems, back in the 20s, and in the early part of the 20th century, in the teens and the 20s, had one rich relation. And in our family, that was Aunt Lena. And Aunt Lena had married a banker and moved to Montreal, and she was well off. And of course, she used to send the hand-me-down clothes and all the back issues of the newspapers and things to the poor relations at Stanleyville and in Perth, because of course my grandpa was also born in Stanleyville, but his father, who was also called Tom, died in 1919 from the Spanish flu. And so the farm was sold and the family moved into town. Grandpa's oldest brother, Gerald, who was 12 at the time, he was tasked with the job at 12 years old of coming into town, into Perth, and buying a house with the proceeds of the farm, buying a house for the family to live in. Imagine you're 12 years old and you've got that kind of responsibility. But that's how it was in those times. Anyway, my grandpa's father, Tom, passed away when my grandpa was still a baby. So my grandpa never really knew his dad. But they came into town anyway. They lived at 18 Church Street in Perth. And Yeah, but how Grandpa got the name was Aunt Lena had been saying that if this baby that was going to be born was a girl, she wanted the baby to be named Shirley. She loved the name Shirley, and she wanted Agnes and Tom to name their latest baby Shirley if it was a girl. Well, of course, it was a boy. So they named it Arthur Shirley. They named my grandpa Arthur Shirley to give him the middle name Shirley. But then for whatever reason, Shirley stuck, and that's the name that he got stuck with. And he used to say it was like the song A Boy Named Sue. He got stuck with a girl's name. But anyway, there's another story for you anyway, in case anybody's wondering about all that. But again, I found all this stuff out because I used to ask questions. I was interested in this stuff, and I used to ask about it. But anyway, that's the story. Aunt Lena wanted there to be a baby girl named Shirley, and so giving my grandpa the middle name Shirley was kind of a compromise. They couldn't give her a girl that go around. Now, there were girls. There were other children in that family who were girls. There was my great aunt Carmel, and there was great aunt Verna, and there were girls in the family, but that last child, I guess Lena really hoped that child would be a girl, and he turned out to be a boy. So that was the compromise, to give him the name Shirley as his middle name anyway. So that's it. Anyway, that's all for now. We'll talk to you later.